What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. We hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and that you are having a very merry run up to Christmas. The Dallas Cowboys playing, of course, on Christmas Eve, so hopefully going to be a fun day for you and whoever you're spending it with. If you're watching with people, maybe you want to watch the game alone. I don't know. We all have our own rituals as far as how we handle the Dallas Cowboys because, as we all do know, it can be an emotional experience. The Dallas Cowboys, of course, playing on Christmas Eve this year, visiting the Miami Dolphins in the afternoon window. Should be a whole heck of a lot of fun. And I know that we are all a little bit nervous, especially coming off of the, if you want to call it a game, more of a one-sided thing against the Buffalo Bills last week. The Cowboys have not lost 2 games in a row since Thanksgiving Day in 2021. And they are on the precipice of doing that, obviously, because they're up against a very, very talented Miami Dolphins team that has had to deal with a lot of the are you frauds, are you actually good stuff that the Cowboys have as well this season. And so the Cowboys are technically underdogs, depending on where you look, about 1.5 to 2 points, which all makes for a very interesting kind of set of circumstances surrounding the game. But obviously, we know everything that we need to know from a Cowboys perspective, and I wanted to know what we needed to know from a Dolphins perspective. So I hit up my very good friend Stone from Apollo Media. Apollo Media is an outlet I discovered because I'm a Houston Astros fan. I know that there are a lot of you who do not necessarily love that. They do a great job with that, but Stone does a great job covering the NFL, does a great job covering the Dallas Mavericks. Hey, you'll hear and I talk about that in a second. The Dallas Stars. Hey, I bet you're already warming up here. And of course, the Miami Dolphins. So Stone loves the Dolphins and has a lot of passionate takes. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to him and all of his thoughts and opinions on who the Dallas Cowboys will face this Sunday. Very pleased now to be joined by the one and only, the legendary, the internationally famous. I think he's known in several other galaxies. I don't know what the full adjustment on the Marvel Cinematic Universe is at this point in time. From Apollo Media, where I am a gigantic fan of, card-carrying member of the Apollo Media fan club. It is the one and only. Again, I asked him how he wanted to go about this. Apollo Stone, Apollo Stoney, Stone. Stone, the floor is yours here, but thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
No, thank you for having me on. I'm excited to talk about my Dolphins. I don't get to do it on our NFL podcast with Apollo Media, Play Action Takes all the time. So,
we have to kind of wade into the waters this way. I catch a lot of grief among my followers, and I think you can kind of understand this for being a Houston Astros fan. It's not a common thing. I think it's more common than people kind of believe it to be, that somebody who, grew up in the 90s, South Texas, is a Cowboys fan, an Astros fan, a San Antonio Spurs fan, just kind of the way I grew up. So the ALCS was really awkward for me. It was really difficult. Like I did not enjoy my time on the internet. Certainly didn't enjoy the way that it ended, and would prefer that we don't acknowledge the way the World Series went. But, I try to be gracious to my followers. Hey, look, you win the World Series, you should, talk all your crap, enjoy your life, whatever. But I discovered you and all the Apollo Media crew because you cover the Houston Astros better than anybody on earth. So that being said, do you want to offer a message of congratulations to the Rangers fans who listen? Like, do you want to just keep the line in the sand? Like, it's up to you how appropriate you want to be here.
It's a tough question. So I also live in Dallas now.
I didn't want to dox you like that, but I was going to say, so like, it's got to be awkward for you in that sense. Yeah.
It was a little weird. So me and my bartender buddy down the street at this Tex-Mex place that we go to frequently, big Rangers fan, obviously grew up in Dallas. So he's always been a Rangers fan. So me and him were always bantering back and forth during the ALCS. He actually went to the game where the Astros scored like 11 or 12 runs, whatever game that was, game 3, I think. So we gave each other grief, and then he obviously got the upper hand at the end and was very nice about it. So I would appreciate if Rangers fans were nice about it. Celebrate if you want, but it is what it is. We'll get you next year. 2024 is coming. So
really tough scene. The game 5 was on my birthday, so when the Altuve thing happened, I was like, oh, this is destiny. Like, of course, awesome. Like this is perfect. Like everything is working out exactly the way that I wanted to. That was very nice and cordial of you. You are a Dallas Mavericks fan. I get a lot of crap for the Cowboys Astros thing. You are spread very wide as far as your fandom of teams. Correct me if I'm wrong. Mississippi State. So you've got the Dak Prescott angle going on here. The Miami Dolphins, obviously, the Dallas Mavericks, the Houston Astros, as mentioned. I mean, what's the story here?
Stars.
Like, I mean, the Dallas Stars. Right. Yeah. And Stone covers the Mavericks and the Stars for Apollo Media, so all the DFW people can check them out for that content as well.
Yeah, thank you. So it's a weird story. I grew up in Alabama. North Alabama, where everyone is either a Tennessee Titans or an Atlanta Falcons fan. For football, my dad was born in Miami, grew up there. He was there for the Super Bowls, very, very young, like doesn't remember them, but undefeated season, all that. My grandpa and my dad just tell me Dan Marino and Bob Greasy stories all the time. And I'm like, man, must be nice. That would be cool. Now we got Tua, so I'm a little bit better. That's the only team my
and you got the Alabama thing. Like that worked out really well for you.
Yeah,
except for the Mississippi State thing. Yeah.
I went to Mississippi State, so it's a little different. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that's the only team I was given. And growing up in Alabama, you're either a Hawks fan or a Memphis Grizzlies fan. I like Dirk because he's a tall, white German guy and funny looking as a 7-year-old in 2003 when he was like choosing random teams. I like Dirk. So that's kind of where the Mavericks come from. And then Houston Astros, Jeff Bagwell, as a avid Game Boy Advanced backyard baseball player. Jeff Bagwell was always my go-to player. So in 2004, Astros were really good. NLCS, Jeff Bagwell had a funny batting stance. There's my Astros fandom. And then Dallas Stars, I kind of picked up later. Hockey was a difficult sport to get into because it's not shown on TV very often, especially in Alabama. So kind of picked that up a little bit before COVID. 2017, 2018 is kind of when I started getting into hockey. So figured if I'm going to end up moving to Texas eventually, might as well just pick the Dallas Stars and call it a day there. So I'm all over the place. I get that. And I went to school at Mississippi State. So that one just kind of a given. So, yeah, all over the place.
Okay. I think it's important that everyone understands kind of like the cards in your hand before we get, the Dolphins of it all. But very cool. And once again, everybody follow Stone on Twitter at Apollo Stoney. That's spelled exactly the way it sounds. You do have to put up with some Astro stuff. But if you put up with mine, you can put up with his. I mean, you know what I mean?
Do it all.
But you what I like about the Apollo Media Crews, y'all are a lot more aggressive than I am. So I dial things back a little bit, but you guys just kind of let it go. And that's the way it should be sometimes.
We're fans. That's kind of by the fan, for the fan. That's what Apollo Media is. We've just creating our preferred content. We create things that we would want to listen to or watch to. That's kind of our viewpoint at Apollo Media. So that's what we do. And when it comes to the Astros, everyone's very passionate about the Astros in our building. So you're going to get the best and you're going to get the worst a lot of the time. So we try to dial back the worst part, but when it's good, you're going to hear it from us.
That's very well said. So I have seen it from you this season when it comes to the Miami Dolphins. Not a lot of flexing opportunities in the 21st century for the Dolphins. Certainly life is very good under Mike McDaniel. Although the Dolphins, like the Cowboys, are putting up with this, like, are you actually frauds conversation? Mm-hmm. I think if the Dolphins were a little bit of a, I don't say bigger market, Miami's obviously massive, but if they were the Cowboys, it would be louder chatter. I mean, I think you agree.
Yeah.
So I guess the first question, Stone, is, are the Dolphins frauds?
No. No.
Why not?
Simple. Their defense, I know the Tennessee game did not really show that in the last 3 minutes of the game. They had a 14-point lead with, I think, 3:05 or 2:55 left in the game. Defense kind of collapsed. Everyone was tired. They'd been on the field a lot because the 2 scoring drives that the offense did have came from the 12-yard line and the 2-yard line due to turnovers. So not long drives, nothing keeping them off the field. I think the defense is elite. I think the pass rush is there, even though with injuries, and now you have Jalen Ramsey just quarterbacking the defense now. So when you have an all-pro corner like that, and then Xavier Howard's come into his own again, post-injury last year, he was injured a lot last year. He's banged up now, but Xavier Howard's been really good. Javon Holland's been stellar. The linebackers have been much better than I anticipated. I did not think Jerome Baker and David Long Jr. were going to be good enough. They have been in the last, I don't know, call it 6-7 weeks. I know Baker's hurt, but the defense is elite, and I believe in the pass rush. I believe in the secondary, which I haven't been able to say since like 2020 when Brian Flores would just blitz everybody, and then we had Byron Jones and Xavier Howard just manning the corner spots. So defense is really good, and then Mike McDaniel, with all of his blunders with throwing fades on the 1-yard line on first, second, third, and fourth goal to Tyreek Hill, who's like 5'10", albeit it's frustrating sometimes. He proved it last week. Raheem Mostert got 3 straight carries on the 1-yard line. I don't know. Yeah. Mostert has 20 touchdowns. Tyreek Hill's there. It's just star power everywhere. They're faster than everybody, and I think their defense is actually very good, although no one talks about it. So I think they're not frauds.
I definitely think they're not frauds. And I think there's nothing more frustrating than nobody agreeing with you that you're not frauds, which is why I want to agree with you. I want you to know you're not frauds. But again, it's just the way people are talking about the Cowboys and the Dolphins right now. The Mostert thing, I don't think he's the Brock Purdy of running backs, but I do think it
No.
certainly helps to play in Mike McDaniel's offense. Mostert obviously played great in San Francisco, and there's obviously all that, to kind of go around here. But the Tyreek thing is, I mean, I don't know. That's like, I mean, that's truly what maybe my opinion on this game hinges on, whether or not he's going to play. You could certainly make an argument that he's MVP of the NFL, especially in kind of a down year for quarterback play. Dak Prescott let that kind of slip through his hands last week in Buffalo. Sorry that they couldn't help you out. But I mean, Tyreek is the most seismically important Dolphins player in your lifetime, I would imagine.
Absolutely. It's bar none. Dan Marino was a shell of himself when I was 3 years old, and that was his last season. So, yeah, I haven't seen a player like Tyreek Hill. Obviously, we've had Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas. Like, we've had Hall of Famers play for this team, and I love Jason Taylor. That was my favorite player growing up, number 99. The bald head just looked like Xerxes in 300. It was awesome. He was like my favorite player growing up, but Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas don't hold a candle to what Tyreek Hill has done to the NFL and to the Dolphins specifically.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird how it completely worked. I think everybody thought like, oh, Tyreek just wants out. He just wants to go live somewhere cool, and maybe put up some numbers. But he is amazing. I don't know of a wide receiver season like this outside of anything Calvin Johnson-ish, but different type of elite, like different type of special.
Yes.
And that's obviously what terrifies me is that Tyreek is going to be able to blow past, like Stephon Gilmore's played really well for the most part over the second half of the season, but I mean, he's a lot older, obviously, than like his peak version of himself. Like, there's nobody on the Cowboys that can run with Tyreek Hill. So what's your confidence level that he plays? For context, we are recording this on Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah. So my family is season ticket holders at the Miami Dolphins. So I asked my dad, my mom and dad were there with their friends last week. It's like, hey, shoot me a text. How does Tyreek look in warmups? Because we always go early and watch warmups and get food and all that. So texted dad. I was like, hey, let me know if he's going to play, because he is absolutely my cornerstone of my fantasy teams on 2 of my 3 fantasy teams. I was like, I just need to know if I need to put like Amari Cooper in or what are we doing here. So he texted me. He's like, he looks good. It looks like he's playing. He's just jumping around. He's dancing. He did all the things. He did the thumbs up running into the locker room after pregame warmups, which means he was playing. I think the Dolphins decided to hold him out a week, which dampens his chances at 2,000 yards, but I think it enhances their chances going into December, January, playoff time. So I would assume Tyreek Hill is back. I don't know what the percentage of health is there. Maybe he's 80, maybe he's 85, but he's faster than everyone in a straight line, even with a bum ankle. So
sure.
And obviously Jalen Waddle looked awesome last week. So if we can get that kind of version of Jalen Waddle with a 85% Tyreek Hill, it screams trouble for the defenses that they end up playing in the rest of the season.
So I think we're at a weird point in the NFL where these, games that look kind of juicy are kind of lacking a special kind of juice. Like even the Christmas night game between San Francisco and Baltimore, and this is something I've been saying all week, like, oh, this looks awesome. And it's like, oh no, like whoever loses this is still going to be the 1 seed, and like in their respective conference. Well, I mean, again, I know you don't want to hear that about Baltimore, but I mean, so it's not, it doesn't have this like win or go home, sort of energy about it. And that's kind of how Dallas Philly felt 2 weeks ago, and Dallas crushed them. And it's a little bit how Dallas Buffalo felt, where it felt like, I mean, the Cowboys had clinched a playoff berth before the game even began. And the Bills are obviously in this dire, like have to win out, scenario and still pick up help just to even get in. So it did feel like they were the team that needed that game a little bit more. And similarly, now I kind of feel like Dallas needs this a little bit more, but with how Philly continues to stumble, obviously losing on Monday night, and Miami has that Baltimore game next week. So I do think it is a matter. I kind of thought last week, like, well, maybe it's worth putting Tyreek on ice. You can beat the Jets without him, and you need this game against the Cowboys, whatever. But again, if I asked you, like, if you could only win one of these next 2 games, it's easily the Ravens game, right? Like, is it not worth, like, I mean, just relative to who the Dolphins are in their playoff position, like, so is it not worth almost like, even if he is 85, 90, 96%, whatever, saying, you know what, this game matters, but we have Baltimore coming next week. That one is the most significant one because they play the Niners. They might lose on Monday night, and then we have a chance to go take the 1 seed back.
Yeah, it's an interesting dilemma. And this year, Mike McDaniel and the rest of the Dolphin staff have been incredibly conservative with their injuries. Javon Holland hasn't played since Black Friday, maybe. Like, I miss him dearly. I want him back. The safety he's the green dot. He's calling plays. He's doing all the things. Had been on the field for a few weeks. Teron Armstead, same thing. He's gone on IR. And they put Devon Achane on IR when he could have come back after 3 weeks. They've done all the things. They put everybody on IR if they need to, and they've just rested people. So I think I'd be shocked if Tyreek did not play this week, just because Tyreek wants that record a lot. He wants it tremendously, and he knows that him being on the field, even if he's not 100%, is still a decoy, still a force to be reckoned with, because we were there for the Tennessee Titans game in person. So I'm sitting there and watching him on the sideline. He's like, he never sat down. He never had his helmet for a long time, but came back out on the field. He sprints on the field. He sprints off the field. Like, he was obviously hurting, but he was helping the fans out. The fans were getting into it, and the fans were juiced. So if Tyreek's on that field, the fans act a little bit different. The team acts a little bit different. It's just like when Tua left last season, when he would get hurt and then he ended up coming back a few games later. The juice is a little bit different. The vibes are a little bit higher. So I would assume he plays. It's just, I hope he doesn't. I'm going to knock on wood. I don't want him to be hurt.
I kind of talked myself into believing that Tyreek won't play. Like, as I phrased the question, I'm feeling a little bit confident myself. So, maybe I'm just smelling myself too much, but we'll see. But so you mentioned the game you went to in Tennessee with your wife.
Mm-hmm.
Great vibes in the photo that you shared. And I was going to ask, is it a Jalen Waddle or Ryan Tannehill jersey that you're wearing in the photo?
No, it's definitely a Jalen Waddle jersey. No.
Well, I mean,
I've never owned I was an anti Ryan Tannehill guy from the beginning. Didn't want him. Didn't like him. He was also pretty mean when I met him back in 2013. So that didn't help his cause.
That's a shame, because I went to Texas A&M and was there when Tannehill was still a wide receiver and Gerard Johnson was his quarterback. So, and like every girl had a crush on Ryan Tannehill. So like he's kind of just like imprinted in my mind, like a very significant part of my time in college. So I was going to give you a little bit of props if it had been a Ryan Tannehill jersey, but I don't have to. But so Tua has seemingly saved you, I guess you particularly, from your hatred of Ryan Tannehill. And he is this weird kind of MVP, not MVP, kind of, gets props, but doesn't get props. Had a great game last week without Tyreek Hill, but nobody really cares. Like, Tua is this weird dude that nobody really knows what to do with and how to feel about. Like, you're clearly very passionate about Tyreek Hill and Javon Holland and, lots of players on the Dolphins, but like, are you like a ride or die for Tua? Or are you just like, I mean, it's okay. Like, I don't know how to feel about how Dolphins fans feel about him.
Yeah, I think Dolphins fans are very wishy-washy because we've been hurt for the last 25 years. Like, we just haven't had anything good happen to us. We haven't won a playoff game since, I don't know, maybe it was 2000 or 2001. Like, my sister was just born, and now she's a full-time worker in Georgia. Like, she moved away from home. Now she works at a real job, like graduated college, all those kinds of things. All of those things have happened since we've won a playoff game. So I think we've been hurt for so long that we're just so emotional, high and lows. That's kind of what Dolphins Twitter is, and it's awful a lot of the time. It's always doomsday or this is the best team ever, and there's no in between. So I'm a Tua guy. I love Tua at Alabama. He was one of the 2 Alabama players I've ever actually enjoyed watching play for Alabama. Derrick Henry and Tua are the 2 teams. There are 2 players that I've watched on Alabama. I was like, that guy's pretty cool. I like him. I was actually at the game that Tua got hurt in college. I was working for Mississippi State Athletics. We were at that game. Unfortunate, but
wow.
Tua's my guy, and I think him not really being in the MVP conversation is like warranted because he's had a few duds of of games, and just the stats aren't all the way there because Raheem Mostert has 20 touchdowns. Like, you could take half of those and give them to Tua, and then Tua's obviously in the MVP conversation. So I love Tua, but we've obviously seen what happens when this team doesn't have Tua. Last year, they won one singular game without Tua. One. And it was the Jets game in week 18 to make the playoffs and be the 7th seed. That's the only game that they won without Tua last year.
I've been there. I don't know. Actually, the last time the Cowboys went to Miami, Tony Romo missed most of the 2015 season, and he returned in that game, if you recall, and threw a left-handed pass, kind of the birth of the left-handed pass in Miami before Tua showed up. And so, they won one game out of 12 that year, the Cowboys did, without Tony. So it was really frustrating. Then what's your level of confidence? And this is a really bad week to ask this question, in Tua against this Cowboys defense that has, for the most part, been a top tier group in the NFL, again, coming off of a really poor showing. But even as I asked that, we were super afraid of Josh Allen a week ago, and he completed 7 passes and the Bills trounced the Cowboys. So and if anyone has a run game that can do that as an overall team, it's obviously the Dolphins. So I guess a 2-part question. What's your level of confidence in Tua against the Cowboys defense? And then your level of confidence in Mike McDaniel's group as a whole against this group?
Yeah, so Tua's had some stinkers, some games that weren't very good. The Tennessee game, I noticed the same thing happened to him during the Patriots game in Week 2 in New England. So in New England, Bill Belichick, mastermind of the defense, had 3 safeties high. So there was no room for Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill to go more than 15 yards down the field without being covered by at least 2 people, if not 4. Mm-hmm. So it was a bit of a troublesome looking thing, but he's finding Braxton Berrios in pockets, and the screen passes were working that game. Tennessee did the exact same thing. I noticed it in the first quarter. They had 3 high safeties. They weren't getting thrown over the top. So it's worked against this offense, but that also opens up the run game, unless you have the defensive front, kind of like the Cowboys do. But after last week, I'm a little bit more confident. So I'm confident in Tua with the ability to play against different defenses, and depending on what the Cowboys end up running, if they're running zone or if they're running man, I think there's man beaters everywhere, and there's zone beaters everywhere in this offense with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane. Like, everyone's fast on this team, and if you can't run with them and Stephon Gilmore, albeit very good this season, I don't think he can keep up with 3 of those guys, maybe 4. So if you get him on the edge and you press man, it's you can watch the Commanders game for reference. If you press man and don't have a single high safety on the top, it's going to be trouble.
Yeah, the Commanders game is a great example. That's a great point, and I think you kind of described every Cowboys fan's greatest fear. And that sort of takes me to our Victor Cruz, Coach Carter question. I think it was Victor Cruz was his name. Obviously, that's the Giants wide receiver. But right. What is your deepest fear? It was I forget his first name, but I know his last name was Cruz. But whatever. What is your deepest fear relative to the Cowboys? Like, what are you losing sleep over this week as far as the Cowboys are concerned? It can be as obvious, oh man, Dak Prescott's playing super well. It can be like the super mundane, tiny little thing. It can be you're afraid of the Dolphins wearing their aqua jerseys. Like, the floor is yours on this question.
I would almost assume that we're wearing all white. It's kind of been the home. It's like the Cowboys, they wear white at home for the most part. Like, I think the Dolphins are just doing it, and while they have a little bit of sunshine, and during the first quarter of this game, it's a 4:25 kickoff in Miami, so the sun won't be up for more than an hour during the game, but anytime the sun's up, they're wearing white for the most part, so I would assume we're wearing white. But my biggest fear would probably be not even of the Cowboys necessarily, but of our offensive line. Last week, all of our entire starting offensive line was gone. All 5. We didn't have a single starter on the offensive line at the end of the game, so if Teron Armstead and Austin Jackson are playing, and then if Robert Hunt can come off of his injury from his hamstring, which I don't think is likely, if we can get 2 of those guys back, then I'm a little bit more confident. But that's my biggest fear, is Micah Parsons just bull rushing Teron Armstead's like bum, knee, quad, ankle, hamstring, whatever. Every part of his body is just hurt all of the time. So if I see Micah Parsons bull rushing into and not ducking, I'm going to panic. I think that's about it.
What have been your thoughts on Connor Williams? Because I maintained, and this is really difficult to do because he went to the worst school in the state of Texas. But I maintained that he had a really productive career for the Cowboys. He was a 2nd-round draft pick, 4-year starter, really kind of helped them solve the left guard issue that they had problems at before drafting Tyler Smith to replace him. But when he left, he had kind of worn out his welcome, and everybody was so fed up with him in penalties, and the Cowboys did miss him early on. And I feel like it's a bummer that he's hurt, obviously. But I feel like he's played really well, and I have to imagine you feel like that was a great decision.
Yeah, so when we signed him, I was like, great. Now we got Robert Hunt, and then we got Connor Williams in our guard positions. And then we signed Teron Armstead, and I was like, if Austin Jackson can just like not be the worst right tackle of all time, we're cooking.
Right.
And Austin Jackson obviously has been very good. Teron Armstead, when healthy, has been very good. Robert Hunt has been very good. Connor Williams, his first season with the Dolphins last year, was frustrating. Like you said, the penalties were they were always a drive killer. It was always a hold or something went wrong on a big play and that ended up killing the drive. And he's also never played center before. So I was like, why are we signing a guy to play guard? And all of a sudden like, you should just be the center now, even though you've never done that before.
It went so badly when the Cowboys experimented with that when the Dolphins, I remember that, those days on Twitter, it was like, oh, they're going to do this. Like, they're about to learn. But again, I feel like it worked out kind of nicely.
Yeah. So last season, the snaps were a little bit wayward. They would always go to the wrong side of Tua. So Tua's left-handed, so it would always come to the right side. And I was like, dude, can we just do we not have one true center that's played it for college at least? Like, can we get one center on the team? That'd be cool. but his blocking was very good last year. I think last year was the number 2 overall rated center behind Jason Kelsey by PFF, which doesn't really mean anything necessarily by their rankings based on a lot of the rankings that they do for a lot of players. But this year he was number 1 overall center. He's a great run blocker. He's been tremendous in pass rush. The snaps were the bad snaps were minimal this year. I think he only had 1 or 2, and one of them cost us the game against the Chiefs. But it is what it is. He was awesome, and it sucks when he went out with injury against the Titans. He tore his ACL, and it happened immediately because Liam Eichenberg literally blocked a guy into his knees, and I have words for Liam Eichenberg, but I'll save him for another podcast.
Yeah. Well, sorry you were there in person, obviously, for that. Yeah. But again, I always sad when anybody gets hurt. But again, he was just playing so well, and it was kind of nice to see him thriving. So that was a huge bummer. On the other side of the fear thing, it makes sense to be afraid of Micah Parsons, like super far limb you're out on Stone with being afraid of Micah Parsons. Something I like to ask is who's the Dolphin, or the thing about the Dolphins maybe that we are not as Cowboys fans like paying attention to that we should be, like in our post-game show, something I would be like, we should have seen this coming. Like this was hiding in plain sight. This wasn't Tyreek Hill or whatever, like some obvious superstar, low-hanging fruit kind of proposition. But like, what is the thing that like could be the reason the Cowboys lose that is in fact hiding in plain sight?
Yeah, so you obviously know about Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane. You know about the track stars.
If you're going to go Braxton Berrios, this is going to be an interesting twist.
You're going to go to the other side of the ball. Okay. On the line. It's kind of the line as a whole. Bradley Chubb has 6 forced fumbles this season, leading the NFL. Now he's had, he had like 3 sacks last week against the Jets, which the Jets are abysmal. That was just a layup game for him. But Christian Wilkins, I don't know if Dallas Cowboys fans are paying attention to this guy. He's probably the best defensive tackle in the game this year. He's up to almost 8 sacks. He's leading. I think he's second in the NFL in sacks. He's a run stopper. He's bull rushing quarterbacks as of recent. So I think Christian Wilkins and Zach Sealer, that defensive tackle combo, is just going to wreak havoc on any line, especially the Dallas Cowboys this week. I think they've been coming into their own this week or the past few weeks. So I would expect that to keep on going.
That's interesting. And that's the perfect answer. Like, again, like somebody who, when you talk about the Dolphins, or I think you evaluate or begin to worry about them, like you get to like a million different things before you would get to maybe say Christian Wilkins. And that's not anything against Christian Wilkins. It's just a testament to who the Dolphins are. What do you trust the most to happen? Like what was the most like guaranteed? It could be positive or negative against the Dolphins here, but like the moment it happens, like of course, like this was always going to happen between the Dolphins and Cowboys.
That's a really good question because I actually have no idea what's going to happen in this game because the Cowboys just got trounced by Buffalo and the Dolphins got trounced by Buffalo earlier in the season. We had the mishap against Tennessee, so we're not in a position where we necessarily should be. We should be number 1 in the AFC right now without the Titans game, but we deserved that loss because we couldn't play defense at the end and the offense couldn't get 1 first down. So it's a tough question because Dak has been playing out of his mind, but the Dallas Cowboys haven't been very good on the road. And Miami is notoriously very good at home, just like the Dallas Cowboys are. I think Miami's 17-2 in their last 19 games at home. So if it's warm, I would expect the Cowboys to be a little bit heated on defense and a little too hot. I think CeeDee Lamb gets 100 yards, though. I think he's going to be one of the few guys that does it. DeAndre Hopkins and Stephon Diggs have done it earlier this season. I think he's the next one.
Yeah, kind of a quiet day for CD last week. Obviously, a quiet day for everybody on the Cowboys, but I think that's a good bet. Obviously, playing incredibly well. I think like I'm not willing to like bet on either of my things, but I think like whether Tyreek does or does not play, somebody on the Dolphins is going for like a 70-plus yard touchdown. The Cowboys gave up a 73-yard touchdown to DK Metcalf on that Thursday Night Football game. And like that just feels like an easy kind of thing, easy prop to take in this game just because of who the Dolphins are. And, I could see the Cowboys being a little bit too aggressive early on and kind of jumping at something, trying to win 2 games at once, which you can't do. So that's one hypothetical. The other thing I would lean on, I do think if Dallas wins this game, I think they do kind of, I wouldn't say run away with it, but maybe get out to like a 10-13-0 lead and then just kind of put it on ice and chill because I could see the Dolphins at that point saying like, we have to live to fight another day. Like we've got the Ravens next week. Like, and that's, everybody was so mad last week. I don't know how well you were watching. Mike McCarthy left Dak and CD and everybody in just to get pulverized by the Bills when the game was so far out of question. Like this, like, again, you have to win every game in the NFL, but like the Ravens game is just looms so large, especially if they are able to lose on Monday night in San Francisco.
Yeah, I don't know if you've been watching Hard Knocks, but I don't know if that'll be their mentality. I think they had that mentality heading into the Tennessee game, and they saw how that worked out. I don't know what the Hard Knocks episode is going to look like tonight. We're recording this on Tuesday, like you said. So we'll see how Mike McDaniel and the boys kind of rile together and just see what that week was like as opposed to the Tennessee week. I think they're one game at a time. They don't care what's happening outside anymore. I think they looked at all the leaderboards and the AFC standings and all that kind of stuff beforehand, and that threw them off. And they were thinking ahead. I don't think that's going to be a problem this year, the rest of the season. So I think they're taking one game at a time, and we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be a really fun game because we don't get to watch the Cowboys and Dolphins play every year. And now that I live in Dallas and family's from Dallas and I'm a Dolphins fan, so it's a fun game for me to watch because I always root for the Cowboys outside of this game, obviously, every 4 years.
Is that because of your family or because of Dak now?
More so me being born here and now me moving here and have some friends that are Cowboys fans. And obviously my business partner, Apollo Des, he's a big Cowboys fan, even though he probably won't tell anyone outside of our office. But I've just kind of always liked the Cowboys. How can you not? They're America's team growing up.
Dez has been on here before, and kind of waved his Cowboys flag. But yeah, it does kind of seem to hide it a little bit more when he's patrolling around, the Crawford boxes, so to speak.
Yes.
But I mean, I can't say I blame him. Although the Cowboys Texans rivalry isn't really like that pronounced anymore, so I don't think
it's not.
Kind of have to hide it. But so that's good to know that you root for the Cowboys. I have no beef with the Dolphins, except and I imagine you agree. It's time to go back to the old uniforms, the old logo specifically. Like this new one is nobody likes it. Like no, you can't convince me that anybody enjoys this logo. Nobody does.
No, the logo stinks. The white jerseys are awesome. If you could just make the logo look a little bit better with the current jerseys that they have, I'd be okay. I could stomach that one. But if there's ever a chance, just do it. Just wear the throwbacks. And hey, I read an NFL rule. Teams can wear one throwback or their third alternate jersey in the playoffs one time. So if the Dolphins just make a run and we make it to the Super Bowl, I'm going to be begging on my knees. I'm going to call Stephen Ross directly, even though I don't have his number or any contact, to get to Stephen Ross, the owner, and just demand that the Dolphins wear throwbacks at some point during the playoffs.
I know you believe the Dolphins aqua jerseys to be cursed a little bit, which is why I brought up what I did earlier. Yeah. But if they went throwback, like the old school logo, would you want, like, because that you have to go aqua then. You can't go throwback and go, I hate the orange tops. I'm sorry, but like you can't go white. You can't go white tops if you're going to go. You got to go all the way and go aqua and break the curse. You know what I mean?
Well, so good news. We're wearing our throwback aquas on Sunday against the Cowboys.
Is this like breaking news? Oh
no, this was announced before the season started. So this is a throwback.
That makes me feel even better. Okay, so
we're gonna have the checkered end zone, the orange and white checkered in the end zone, the throwback logo at midfield. We're gonna wear the aqua jerseys, the black shoes, the black accessories. It's old school football. I'm ready.
Yeah, and once it gets darker, obviously once the sun sets, this is going to look really pretty. I never really realized how much I appreciated Hard Rock Stadium, honestly, until the Miami Grand Prix was there. It was that moment that I was like, this is kind of a cool building. I never really gave it its due, love. So that's my bad. Last one before predictions, you brought it up. Yep. What have you thought about the in-season Hard Knocks? Because those don't really tend to hit. It's kind of.
So like the Cardinals had one year and the Colts had one.
Yeah,
and
those stunk.
And they were both stinkers.
Yeah.
Bad teams, and then it's just bad teams to choose for the premise of Hard Knocks. It's been refreshing and interesting to watch and see what's going on because Tua's a very private guy, so you don't get a lot of Tua interview clips or just him on social media. Like he's just everything on social media is a brand deal with Tua for the most part, except for like the occasional Dolphins post where he's hyping up. So you get a little bit more Tua, and then any more screen time of Mike McDaniel, I'm always in on. He's the most interesting man in football because of how his brain works and what he says and how he says it. I love Mike McDaniel, so any more time I can get with him, absolutely, I'm all in on that. So I think this Dolphins team has a bunch of personalities that work for this Hard Knocks, and they were not looking forward to being on Hard Knocks. No one wanted it. So it was interesting to see how they were going to act once they were put on Hard Knocks. And it's been fun to watch. I didn't enjoy last week because that was the Titans week and in that game. So that was a little bit hard. I think I waited till Thursday or Friday to even watch that episode. I wasn't ready yet, so
can't say I blame you. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's well assessed. All right, so prediction, and you reserve the right to change this, obviously, because we are
Mhm.
recording Tuesday. If Tyreek news comes out or whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
but who wins? Kind of, you don't have to offer a score, but just kind of general vibes for how you see this game unfolding.
So it's a throwback week, which means Hard Rock is going to be rocking. Absolutely,
Okay.
every year that they have a throwback game, it's obviously a little bit more juice is put into the fans. The last time I was at a throwback game was the Patriots game to end the 2021 season, where
Okay.
Brian Flores
Right.
infamously won the game and then was fired the next morning. Fun times. But the throwback games
won the game to finish the 8-game winning streak to close the season. Or
Yeah,
whatever
they
it was?
went
Yeah.
1-7 to 8-7 to 9-8. Yeah, it
Right. Okay.
was a gross season. But throwback games are always interesting. I think the throwback games actually bring out hard-nosed football. So I think the game might be a little bit faster. Like game clock's going to run out a little bit faster because I think they're going to run the ball a lot more. So I don't think they're going to score 35, 31 points. I think the Dolphins are somewhere in the high 20s. And I expect the Cowboys to be somewhere in the 20s as well. So I'm going to pick the Dolphins, obviously. But I think it's going to be a hard-fought game, and it's going to be a lot of fun, a lot of hard hits.
Yeah. When the Cowboys wear their Thanksgiving throwbacks, it does feel a little bit different. Some of that's just it's Thanksgiving and there's a different kind of
Yeah.
energy about that. But they have beaten the Dolphins in their throwbacks in the Super Bowl before. So got that going for it. And in a game that I believe was played in Miami, if my memory serves me right there.
Maybe.
Tough scene, Super Bowl 6. But that did spark the perfect season. So you're welcome.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think this is if you're doing like squares or something, I think this is a weird week because I think there might be like some 2-point conversions. These are two really aggressive play callers. I think it's like a 29-25 kind of game. I'm kind of with you on the high 20s sort of thing. Maybe a last second score to win. I'm obviously taking the Cowboys. I do think that they have just a little bit more to play for in that small sense. I don't say that at all to diminish, or imply that Miami doesn't care or anything like that, but it's so hard not to look ahead to that massive ball. It's not like, oh, we got a really important division game against the Patriots. It's no, like that could be for the 1 seed. And it's not like even Baltimore's playing a crap team this week. Like they could lose that game, the Ravens. So I'm going to lean in that direction. So while you're here, and since, DFW followers put up with our Astros love, predictions for the Astros, the Mavericks, and the Stars right here on Tuesday, December 19th.
Stars are going to make a Stanley Cup Finals appearance. I don't know if they win it or not. They're good enough. They're going to bring up some guys on the Texas Stars. They're going to have some defensive reinforcements come trade deadline too. Mavericks are going to be a top 6 seed, and they're going to make the second round. I don't know if they have to play Denver in the second round. We're screwed. No one's beating Denver. Yeah, and the Astros, we'll win the AL West again. We'll be back. We won't spend any money, but we'll figure that out.
Like, how can they? Now there's all the Space City Home Network, drama.
It's a disaster.
So, wow, that's as far as you're willing to go. It's just say win the AL West.
That's guaranteed. You don't have to play in that. They're not going to play in the wild card round. They're going to get that first round bye again. So they'll host the ALDS.
And they won't pay Kyle Tucker or Fromber. So
they're not going to pay anyone ever again. It's going to be awful.
Okay. Stone is on Twitter at Apollo Stoney, kind of a hub for everything he does. Everybody check out Apollo Media, all the podcasts, give all the plugs and everything right now, please.
Yeah, so we have an NFL podcast, Play Action Takes. It's all on Apollo HOU YouTube. So hit that subscribe button, turn those noties on. I also do Zero Gravity NBA podcast. So general NFL NBA podcast, Play Action Takes, Zero Gravity. You're not going to want to listen to any Texan stuff, probably not any Astro stuff. So go check out our pop culture stuff as well. Watch with Apollo on YouTube. We do a lot of fun games on TikTok, and we throw that stuff on YouTube as well. So a lot of movie, a lot of pop culture stuff.
I love the pop culture stuff. So last thing as we leave, give us a movie show recommendation. You said that you waited to watch Hard Knocks last week, maybe something you were watching in the meantime. I'm having a real hard time finding a new show to stick my teeth into. My wife is a big Crown fan, so I tried to watch it.
Okay.
It's too slow. I need it, so I need something. So for me and the listeners and the viewers, give us something to watch.
If you've already watched Game of Thrones and you haven't watched House of Dragon, that's coming back this summer, season 2. Okay. So get into House of Dragon if you've already watched Game of Thrones. If you haven't watched Game of Thrones, it's been like 7 years. Like, let's get on it, guys. We're a big reality TV household here. So we're all into The Real Housewives. We're into Southern Charm as of recent. Okay. So Southern Charm has been blaring at all moments during the day for the most part. So Bravo. We love Bravo.
I'm big reality TV, and my household is as well. We got the Survivor finale coming out this Wednesday.
Yeah.
Love the challenge on MTV always. And if you haven't checked it out, I would encourage you to give Lego Masters a spin. Like that is a show that like people think like, oh, it's just people doing Lego. No. Like this is a really epic show. And Will Arnett is a great host. Lego, I think it's on Hulu. If you want to catch up, but I highly recommend Lego Masters.
Oh, that sounds great. Will Arnett, I'm in.
All right, Stone, you're the man. Give us one final word, and we say goodbye.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun week. Let's try not to kill each other on Twitter. It's gonna be a fun game. Let's both get into the playoffs healthy and have a good time in January.
Yeah, let's meet back up in February. Let's just do that.
I'm down.